Okay, we are live. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So today is 29th of April, 2025. The time is 10:39 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on my side of the world. Uh, we have Mohammad Aseef Khan, who is going for his diploma in artificial intelligence operations, RQF level 6. The topic is multi-cloud infrastructure design using Kubernetes, AI-driven operations, and cloud-native security on AWS and Azure. It's a very loaded topic. I'm going to go through a lot of things, inshallah. Knowing you, you have been communicating with me, talking about different preparation stuff and whatnot. This is going to be a tough exam, right? No, I'm just joking. So if the exam is like level 6, so we will focus on the level 6, inshallah. The topic is loaded, of course. This is the highest level we take at RQF level 6. So inshallah, we will focus on all of those aspects. You will be given minimum 15, maximum 25 minutes to go through the presentation, inshallah. Once your presentation is done, I will mark the presentation while you're going through it. Then we will go through some Q&A session, the question and answers, right? Inshallah. Okay. So are you ready?
Yes, Afzal bhai, I'm ready.
Okay. You may share your screen and I will start the timer once I tell you.
Is the screen visible?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay. Should I start?
Yes, Bismillah.
أعوذ بالله السميع الأليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وسلم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all who have joined the meet. My name is Mohammad Aseef Khan and I'm a student of Diploma in Artificial Intelligence Operations, RQF Level 6. Today I'm going to walk you through my solution to the multi-cloud infrastructure design problem. So let's begin. First of all, starting off, I would like to state a recent forecast that was generated by Gartner, which states that by 2027, over 90% of the organization will embrace a multi-cloud strategy. Now, we'll look at why is that so. There are four key benefits of the multi-cloud strategy. That is, that companies through a multi-cloud strategy can avoid vendor lock-in. And secondly, they want their applications to be always available to customers all over the world. So we have high availability and failover through a multi-cloud strategy. And uh, another reason is that they want to leverage the best services offered by each of the clouds. So for example, right now, Azure is leading in terms of AI. They have made collaborations with OpenAI. So a company who has a primary cloud platform in AWS will still like to use Azure's AI services or Azure Sentinel, which is a quite unparalleled theme right now in the market. And lastly, cross-regional compliance. For example, if one cloud provider is available in one region but is not in the other, so the company might want to leverage the other cloud providers region for that purpose. Now, uh, we are here. I faced this as the multi-cloud King Kong challenge because right now achieving a true multi-cloud Kubernetes-driven infrastructure is hard because the tools available right now are not that mature to support a multi-cloud infrastructure. And security and compliance is already hard to achieve with a single cloud, and now with multiple cloud it can get much harder. The cost in the case of cloud computing, we all know that cost can get out of hands pretty quickly. So controlling cost will be a challenge for us. And lastly, as of now, there is a shortage of talent pool. Specifically, the multi-cloud trained professionals are not right now in the market. So these are the some benefits of this infrastructure and some challenges that we face right now. Now I'll proceed towards my proposed solution to this problem. I'll begin with the basic strategy that I call as the unified operations model. Now, what is the unified operations model? Unified operations model means that even if your workloads reside in two different clouds, one cloud provider should still serve as the primary control plane from where you govern, manage, and operate the entire infrastructure. Now, the benefit of this approach is we will, through this approach, avoid duplication of tools, using the same tool for to achieve to solve the same problem, and also uh, over replication. So this strategy is must if someone wants to embrace multi-cloud, so that we achieve maximum process consistency across in the entire infrastructure. Now let's examine the high level design of my proposed solution. So if a user wants to access an application of our company, and we have our clusters residing in both the clouds, AWS and Azure. First of all, the request goes to the Route 53, the DNS service offered by AWS. From there, based on geolocation routing policy, it routes traffic to either Azure or AWS, whichever is nearer to the customer requesting the application. From the DNS service, we go straight to the web application firewall, and from there we go to the application load balancer. The balancer then distributes traffic to different clusters. Here I have only mentioned one cluster in each of the clouds, but in real world scenario we will have multiple clusters in both the clouds. So the load balancer will distribute traffic across the clouds. And if our teams want to communicate get into the primary control plane AWS, so through here you can see the data center is mentioned, and from the IPsec VPN tunnel, our teams will get into the primary control plane. And if we want cross cloud communication, for that also we utilize the IPsec VPN tunnel, which is extremely secure to encrypt data. Now I'll go a bit deep dive into the low level cross cloud network design. How our solution achieves this, and securing it at the same time. So starting off, at the top we have identity based policies on for the OSI application layer, which is achieved through a service mesh. In our case, we will be utilizing Istio for this purpose. So this service mesh is responsible for application layer access control. And from going up, we have the fine grained network policies, which are the container network interfaces in Kubernetes, Calicio or Cilium. We can utilize either of them. This fine grained network policies will be responsible for east-west traffic, securing the east-west traffic within a cluster. And lastly, at the last, we have the coarse grained network policy, which is the usual perimeter-based network security that we deploy in a traditional architecture for perimeter-based security. So if an application, for example, a service resides in AWS, wants to communicate to a service in Azure, first it will go to the egress gateway. Egress gateway will be deployed as a sidecar container within the cluster. From the egress gateway, it goes to the firewall of the cloud, and from that firewall, it goes straight to the firewall of the Azure infrastructure, and there it goes to the ingress gateway, and passing through the ingress gateway, the our requires gets to the service in the Azure cloud. So through this type of multi-tier policy, we can secure both north-south traffic and the east-west traffic. Now, having established this, the unified operation strategy and the high level, low level design, I'll now go over 4 key areas and how our solution addresses the 4 key areas, namely DevOps automation and the system operations, AI integration, and cybersecurity. Now, starting with the DevOps automation, we will build a DevSecOps platform on the primary cloud provider AWS, which will enable agile and automated development and deployment via CI/CD pipelines. to take the software from build to runtime phase securely. It will consist of CI/CD tools, GitLab, and Argo CD for the deployment part, and secures, software development lifecycle will utilize independent development environments and a container image security. For example, it can be Trevi or Clear, and then runtime security. For that, we have sysdig. And as for repositories, we will be utilizing GitLab, and for container registries, we will be utilizing ACR and ECR in both the clouds. Now, the GitOps methodology, which is a pull-based methodology, will be applied for applications, application code for infrastructure code through Terraform, and also policy as a code through Open Policy Agent. Argo CD will be serve as a continuous deployment tool, and it will be available in both the clusters, and it will be responsible for updating container images via rolling deployment in both the clusters. Infrastructure as code will be deployed through, we will be utilizing Terraform for this purpose, because Terraform is a great tool, and it will ensure consistency in deployments. Now let's see the system operations, how we will address system operations. For that, the primary service we will be utilizing is the AWS Systems Manager, which can work across clouds. And this will serve as a unified operations hub that will be responsible for executing scripts across our Azure and EC2 instances, and enforce configurations and prevent configuration drifts across cloud. And also, this system manager will be responsible for streaming the logs into S3 for analysis. More on that later, because S3 will also serve a greater purpose in this infrastructure. I'll elaborate on that. Prometheus and Grafana, the standard monitoring and observability tools, will be deployed in both the clusters to ensure observability and monitoring. Now the AI integration, which is critical, I believe, for a multi-cloud infrastructure, because we need AI for this purpose, because it can continuously monitor and take action. Unlike humans, we can't do that. So for AI, we will be streaming our logs from our virtual machines, our containers, our clusters, our identity management systems, and our SIEM to a central S3 bucket. This S3 bucket will serve as a data lake, a huge data lake, which will contain logs of all the different entities. This data lake then will be utilized to create custom white box models, machine learning models, to aid in proactive operations and security. Now, why this approach? Because a white box model will ensure that we achieve explainable artificial intelligence, so we can use it for auditing purposes later on. If we go for a large language model or generative AI application, we can't create it as like a explainable AI. For that, we have to create our own custom white box models. Key use cases of artificial intelligence integration is predictive scaling. If we have to scale our pods, our virtual machines, so based on traffic, the trained artificial intelligence model will scale our pods, or scale down our pods. For continuous monitoring, this is key requirement for a zero trust architecture. Without continuous monitoring, we can't achieve a true zero trust architecture. So continuous monitoring is necessary, and machine learning models can be used for that purpose. And also resource optimization, in for example, if our some VM is not being utilized for production, it can switch it off to save cost. Now lastly, the all important cyber security. Now cyber security is achieved in this infrastructure through a zero trust architecture. Now, what is the zero trust architecture? Zero trust architecture has four key components. Number one, give access explicitly. Assume breach. We assume that there is already a bad guy within the network. So, and thirdly, continuous monitoring. And lastly, micro segmentation. And in our case, we can achieve it easily through pods. Zero trust is necessary and is the singular solution to multi-cloud security. Why is that so? Because with a traditional perimeter-based security, we can't secure a multi-cloud infrastructure because we don't know, we can't really, calculate where to, start and where to end. A zero trust architecture is necessary because it assumes there's already a bad guy within the network. So we on per session and per role basis, we only grant access to a, a subject. Now this is uh, a design for a unified zero trust system to achieve security in this infrastructure. Now I'll elaborate on this a little bit. In this system, we have a control plane and a data plane. The control plane has the policy engine. The policy engine is programmed the rules which determine whether subject gets grants can get access to a resource or not. And different systems like the continuous monitoring system, the threat intelligence tools, the SIEM tool, the IAM tool, all feed into this control plane, the central control plane, which has the policy engine. Through the policy engine, we communicate to the policy enforcement point. In our case, it will be the service mesh. The policy enforcement point will be utilized through a service mesh that will determine if someone gets access to a resource or not. Through this system, we will achieve a security based on identity based access control. But to achieve a true multi-tier security, we will also have to deploy a traditional perimeter based security with this unified zero trust system. The identity and access management will be, you know, the AWS cloud infrastructure will serve as the primary identity source through identity and access management identity center. The if our teams will want to gain access to both the AWS and Azure environment, we will utilize federated identity and single sign-on. The AWS intra-identity will trust the AWS Identity Center as the SAML identity provider source and grant access to both the clouds. And also, multi-factor authentication will be enabled to enhance security further. Now, data security. Data is the oil of the 21st century. And there was once there was a robber, Willie Sutton, who was once asked, "Why do you rob banks?" He said, "Because that's where the money is." So in our case, data, who has the data has the money. So protecting data is critical. And protecting data all comes down to three fundamental things: encrypt data at rest, encrypt data in transit, and encrypt data in use. For key management and storage, we will utilize both AWS key management service and the Azure key vault. And for Kubernetes secrets management, we will be utilizing the secret management service in both the AWS and Azure cloud. As for the SIEM part, as of now, Sentinel is the only SIEM that can actually cover multi-cloud setups. So we will be utilizing Sentinel in our infrastructure with native detection tools enabled in both the clouds, and also auto remediation enabled via Azure Logic apps. Now, as for the compliance, the GDPR and HIPAA compliance we will utilize policy as a code to achieve automated compliance, because we want to automate most of the things that we do. We want to automate as much as possible, and for that we will utilizing the open policy agent. Also, AWS native services and the Azure native services config and policy will be utilized to minimize compliance drifts. The shared responsibility model is critical. If any organization wants to embrace this multi-cloud infrastructure design, they will have to closely understand this shared responsibility model, because a lot of times, organization confuse what is their responsibility and what actually is the responsibility of the cloud service provider. In our case, because we will be utilizing the infrastructure as a service, so our responsibility will be to secure the access control, administration, content compliance, application and solution stack, while the rest of the things will be taken care of by the cloud providers, AWS and Azure both. Now, I'll discuss how this type of infrastructure design can solve key challenges of both the e-commerce and the finance industry, because they have they both serve different use cases. In the e-commerce industry, scalability is the the most important thing is scalability, because someday we will have more traffic, someday sometime we are where the sale is not available, the traffic will go down. So based on that, our clusters, the pods, and the virtual machines should also scale up and down. For that, we will utilize the Kubernetes horizontal pod scaler and the cluster auto scaler for scalability. As for the finance industry, security and compliance is key in this industry. We want security and compliance, and for that, as I discussed before, we will deploy a multi-tier security policy that will secure both identity tier and the network tier, the traditional perimeter-based security. And GitOps on policy and code will ensure that our infrastructure remains compliant all the time. Now, I'll elaborate on the cost control framework that will help has control cost in this infrastructure. It is based on key three main things. The monitor, first of all the infrastructure has to be monitored properly, so that there is no, you know we don't have any resource that is not being utilized and running on the cloud, and giving a unnecessary bills. And then we have to optimize for cost, and also automate through cost aware infrastructure policies. We can ensure that we automate the cost control part. Drawing my presentation to a conclusion, I will like to uh, you know describe the multi-cloud maturity model that I feel is critical if organizations want to embrace this infrastructure. So we all know that starting a new project is difficult, and we have to start somewhere, and then through continuous iterations we achieve the desired level that we initially wanted. So if our organization wants to embrace the infrastructure, initially, I believe the level one actually is not that important. We'll start from the level two, because the cloud provider take care of many things. So we can start from the level two. In level two, we have to ensure that we have standardized processes and automated builds, and from there we go to level three. Level three means that we start marching towards that our desired objectives, which is we achieve cross cloud processes, container orchestration, and security automation. And in the level four that we actually always wanted to achieve, that is the full automation of our entire infrastructure, and going towards a self-aware infrastructure through artificial intelligence for operations. We will have self-healing systems, and this is the level we actually want to achieve in our solution. Lastly, I will want to finish my presentation with the golden triangle of management, that is build, focus on the people, build efficient processes, and utilize the right tools, and do it in that order. Through this, we can ensure that we achieve our desired objectives of this design or any other project that we would like to embrace. Thank you. Uh, okay.
The presentation
Over to
is,
you.
yeah, the presentation was very good. You can stop the screen, the sharing of the screen.
Okay, Faisal.
You look very enthusiastic today. I'm very happy. Okay, Bismillah. So you mentioned one of the things, right? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Bismillah.
Um,
Faisal bhai,
why? Yes.
can I use a paper to,
Yeah, you can. Just write
uh,
down the questions. Yes, yes.
okay, okay. Thank you.
Okay, so you mentioned something. You mentioned like, companies are trying to focus on multi-cloud strategy, and you mentioned the Gartner report, like as per the Gartner, in the next 2, 3 years, couple of years,
Yes.
2027, right? You mentioned
Yes,
2027.
yes, 2027.
Yes. So in the next couple of years, uh, most of the organizations will be having a multi-cloud strategy.
Yes.
Uh, you mentioned vendor lock-in. I'm going to throw another question at you right now.
Yes.
Because of the recent, issues happening on the global front as it relates to foreign policy in, in USA. So imagine the company is based in Canada, right? And and we just had our elections, right? So we just had our elections, uh, and yesterday I went out there to vote because we had to vote for the least, uh, from the lesser of the evils who can support the Muslims community over here and build up so on and so forth, right? So I went out there to vote, and I saw many people voting, stuff like that, right? The the America is saying, because when you're living in the West, you have to participate in things which doesn't conflict with Islamic ideology, but at the same time you create an atmosphere where you can create uh, protection and covers for the Muslim community because they're playing a very critical role over here, right?
Yes.
So let me ask you something, right? Uh, because there is no khilafah, there's nothing like that right now. It's going to take some time to build all of that foundation, right?
Yes.
So there's a Canadian company. The US is threatening that, we are going to, uh, absorb Canada as our 51st state. So my question to you is, in this case, why a Canadian company should focus on a multi-cloud strategy, right? Where all of their networks were in AWS and Azure, which is owned by US, right? What should it what they should do? Like, what are the course of action they should look into in terms of having a multi-cloud strategy? What goes beyond the locking, vendor locking, right? In light of the recent events happening, what should we do?
Okay.
So you're coming from Pakistan over here to work for us,
Yes.
right? And the company's asking, what should we do?
With regards to whether to go multi-cloud or not, that's what you are trying to ask.
I'm saying like we are a multi-cloud,
Okay.
but there is Azure and AWS. Both of them are owned by American companies, right? What
Well,
should we
in
do
that,
now?
yes, yes. Okay, I understood your question.
Yes.
Well, in that case, I believe the company should try to build their own private cloud. A
Mhm.
private cloud can be built through OpenStack software that is available now. So it's not that difficult to build a private cloud now.
So yes, I mean the company should look into building up a private cloud.
Yes.
What else should the company look into? There are two keywords I'm looking for. For the data, you mentioned about the data is the new oil, is the new currency, right? And the presentation was really good. Just to let you know, you scored very well on presentation, right? I was really happy, excited. It was like there's a lot of things going on, right? So, question number two I have is like, what are the two key elements for any organization, in light of these recent events, the Europeans are saying, oh, this is messed up, man. Look what is happening. The Scandinavian countries are saying, we relied on the West, and that didn't work out, right? So there's a very famous saying by Henry Kissinger. He said, to be an enemy of US is dangerous, but to be a friend is fatal, right? So all the United States friends, the Europeans, the Scandinavians, the Asia Pacific, the Japanese, the Oceania, New Zealand, Australia, Singapore, uh, all of these countries are now thinking twice, right? So in light of all of these things, anything can happen. If a company has a data in the cloud, what are the two core principles that they should always look into before they host their data in the cloud? What are those things? From a national security perspective, from a national strategy perspective,
Okay.
what is it? You know the answer.
Yeah.
If the data only resides within your own country, what do you call it?
Data reside with its own company.
And it doesn't goes out. It only stays in. Like, for example, the data only resides, we have AWS, we
Yes.
have Azure, we have Google, but they are mandated by law as per the Canadian government and even in the European Union, GDPR and all of those guys, they say like the data should not leave the physical and the logical border of the given country. What do you call that?
Okay.
Data residency,
Data residency.
right? Right? Okay. Now the other thing I have is like if the just give me 1 minute.
Yeah.
Okay. The next I have is you have, there's always a second thing that goes with data residency, which is data. It needs to be there's a there's a you know there's a point for that. What do you call it?
I actually understand the concept, but I can't figure out the exact term, the key term. I know the concept, but
Yeah, I mean,
can't
okay,
remember the
explain to me
term.
the concept. If you don't have the words, explain to me. Every nation is what?
Sorry,
Every
can you
nation is
repeat it?
what?
Every nation is what?
So that no one can violate the other, like India and Pakistan are right now fighting. There won't be any fighting happening because the Indians know the economy of Pakistan is so bad right now that they don't want to experience the same bad economy for themselves, right? They're at $1 trillion level. Pakistan is like $300 billion, right? And even for that, they have to ask and beg for the IMF for multiple times. So the Indians are, if they're clever enough, and I think that they have certain intelligence, that they won't make this mistake of attacking Pakistan because they have nothing to lose. They will just fire up the nukes, right? It's as simple as that. I mean, there's no
Yes.
primary defense, second defense, third defense, fourth defense. There's nothing, right? There's only second strike capability. They will strike first. I mean, it's not even a second strike. They'll just strike, right? So, what do you call that? That you have to respect the one thing of a nation. It's a sovereignty. So the
Okay.
laws are data residency and data
Data
sovereignty,
sovereignty.
right? This is very important. Remember this. When you go for the interview, you will never lose these things again because there are many jobs coming in the U in Canada right now, right? There are jobs in UK right now. There are jobs in European Union right now, right? And they're looking for people to come in and join, right? And things are getting crazy at different levels. So they're looking for people who can join in and who can do all of those things, right? So that's why I'm telling you, just remember this thing. This is very important for you. Okay.
I wrote it down. I wrote it.
I'm going to show you something. Why, right? That at the end of the interview, I'm going to show you something why I'm telling you that you need to understand this thing. Because now each and every country in the world has realized this thing that, like on the grand, when it comes to grand alliances and when it comes to basically their sovereignty, each and every country has to take care of themselves. This is the reason that in Islam, the concept is Ummatul Wahida, right? There's only one Ummah. There's no Pakistan, there is no Saudi, there is no UAE. In the eyes of Allah, it's all, if you're all united, then you'll be stronger. If you're not, then obviously you'll be eaten up, right? So this is very important for you. So don't, miss those questions. So explain why zero trust architecture was critical for securing multi-cloud environment, compared to traditional perimeter-based security models, according to the presentation that you mentioned.
Yes. In the case of traditional perimeter-based security, we only, secure our it's like the border, the digital borders. We only secure the digital border. But in the case of multi-cloud, it really becomes difficult to map where are we starting and where do we end, where the network starts and where it ends. So in the case of zero trust, we assume that someone has already breached our network, and based on that, our each resource is granted access based on the predefined rules in the policy engine.
So that's good. That's a good answer. Assumption is that in the zero trust architecture, the assumption is you're already breached. Assume all network
Yes,
traffic is breached, right? Internal,
yes,
external, it could be malicious. So start from there. Uh, can we implement the same zero trust architecture in other things?
yes. It's a zero trust architecture can be implemented in a SCADA network also.
Can you implement the zero trust architecture into your day-to-day lives?
Well, yes, I believe we can do that. Yes, yes, we
No.
can do that.
So how do you do it? Like,
Like, in the case of an individual, we always have to deal with our nerves. So we can, in the case of zero trust, there's a concept of micro segmentation. So for each thing, we can create segments within ourselves. Like, if someone has problems with anger, there can be a segment for that, and then there can be another segment for another, a problem.
like the reason I'm saying is in Surah Al-Hujurat, my daughter, when she was 6 years old, she
Yes,
memorized the whole Surah Al-Hujurat, right? In one of
mashallah.
the ayahs, Allah says, "O you who have believed, if a wicked person comes to you with any news, right? Investigate thoroughly,
Yes,
lest you harm a people out of ignorance and afterwards become regretful for what you have done." So if anyone comes to you, even if it is a scholar comes to you or whoever that person is, you know, Allah has commanded to the believers, verify the information, verify. So
verify.
there is a scholar Usmani, right? If he says something, say, okay, let me verify. Does it make sense or not? The Sahaba used to do that. So in a company, when you're working, you have to make sure that if someone is asking you a question or gives you the information, not asking, but gives you information, say, okay, I trust you, but I need to verify. So trust but verify. This is very important because during the verification process, you will be in a place to understand, right, that you might find some information which not be, worthwhile. Now, one of the things that in the zero trust architecture is that you have to keep in mind is you assume everyone is compromised,
Yes,
as you mentioned, right? That assumption. Most of the time, assumption kills, right? So you don't assume anything. But in this case, yes, you assume that the whole network is compromised. So you always verify. Do you need this access? Why do you need this access? If you need access, I don't trust you, but I will give it to you. Give me a justification, right? This is very important. Remember that, okay? Okay, the next question I have is related to, how GitOps ensures immutable infrastructure practices when applied to policy enforcements across both AWS and Azure. You mentioned that the desired state in your presentation and the recommended state. So how does GitOps does that? I mean, how does it do?
The GitOps methodology is a pull-based methodology that utilizes a CD tool. It can be Argo CD or it can be Flux. Now, what happens is once the developer pushes the code, it can be application code or can be policy as a code, as you mentioned. Once the code is goes to the repository, the GitLab will actually build the code, and then it will update the repository with an version name. Now, Argo CD resides in each of the clusters, and it is continuously monitoring that repo. As soon as it detects that there is a new version name available, it immediately updates the containers.
Okay. But the question I have is just like, how does it ensures the immutable infrastructure practices? What does immutable means?
Immutable means that it is not changeable.
It's not
It
changeable. So
is
how
not
does
changeable.
it ensures GitOps ensures that
Immu-
whatever is
immu-
stored in whatever is stored in the Git, you know, when you push it to the infrastructure, uh, it always goes. There is no there is no configuration drift happening. Nothing overrides the live state, stuff like that. That's what I'm trying to see. That's what I'm trying to get to.
okay, understood. The immutable architecture is a key component of the other DevSecOps platform that I just mentioned. Because what immutable architecture means is that if we have to update something, we don't change it. Rather, we destroy it completely and push a new version of it. The best example of immutable architecture is the containerization technology. We don't change our containers, but rather we update them with a new one. So in the case of GitOps will ensure that once the image is pushed, the new container is built, the image is built, and then a new container version is deployed in the cluster. We don't change already running clusters, containers within the cluster. We just update them with a new one.
Okay. Why is it necessary to implement a SAML federation between AWS and Azure, right? Why is it necessary? Instead of maintaining separate IAM models, I mean, why am I not, why do I need a federated identification model when I can have one in AWS, the other one
Yes,
in Azure? Why am I doing it? You mentioned unified operations model, right? Why?
yes.
Which is a very good name. Organizations are looking for that, actually. So why?
Yes. The federated identity approach is necessary, I believe, in this setup, because if we have different IAM system for both the clouds, it will only be a hectic for the teams, the local teams. They have to log into each of the clouds separately and then perform their day-to-day activities with a single sign-on federated identity. And using SAML is necessary to achieve federated identity. It can be other approach also, but SAML is a good one, so we can use it to achieve single sign-on across clouds, and teams can do the day-to-day activities of their operational work.
I mean, so are we able to reduce the attack surface through this?
The attack service. Yes,
I
I
mean,
believe attack surface will get reduced, because if we have had separate identities, we had to manage the separate identities and secure the identities, because if
good.
identity gets leaked,
Uh,
then
yeah,
already
that's
the network
I,
is
I got the
compromised.
answer. I got the answer. Uh, do we comply for compliance purposes? Does it makes
Yes.
easier for us to manage compliance?
The federated identity,
Yes, through federated
yes,
identity.
definitely it makes it a ton
Explain
easier.
how. Explain how.
Okay. In case of compliance, we have to make sure that our whatever IAM methodology and system are we using is secure. If we had different IAM system for both the clouds, we had to go compliance for each of them. with having a federated entity, we only have to comply with the single IAM system that is will be in AWS cloud.
Okay. Do we also get operational simplicity in terms of doing a single sign-on across AWS and Azure and everything?
Definitely, operation simplicity will also be there.
How? How? Explain.
Operational simplicity will be achieved through a federated identity by, if the teams, have different identities to log into AWS and Azure cloud, it will be only difficult for them. By simplifying and only having a single identity log to access both the clouds, it will make operations really easy.
Okay. All right. We'll take that. The cost optimization strategy, right? So
Yes.
talk about that. So the cost optimization strategy, looking at diagram. Uh, so you have AWS instance scheduler, right?
Yes.
And Azure automation. So these are two different things we use
Yes.
for to provisions resources. Create a scenario where a failure in automation leads to massive unexpected cost, right? Explain to me how could this happen, and explain how it would detect proactively using AI ops integration. You're doing your diploma in AI ops, right?
Yes.
So AWS instance scheduler and Azure automation, something happened. And what happened was just like, they started provisioning more and more systems and servers that led to massive unexpected costs because as soon as you call the service, they give you the machine. There was no need for that. Something happened. I don't know if that happened. You have to explain me what could go wrong, right? In both of these things that can unexpectedly increase the cost. And that happens in the organizations, right? And how can we use AI ops to detect proactively and stop it in its tracks?
Okay. Now, to answer this question, I'll borrow the example of the e-commerce industry. In the e-commerce industry, because there is massive traffic fluctuations, if there is sale or not, based on that, traffic will fluctuate a lot. And now, if we have a standard number of VMs and pods running within our clouds, if suddenly there is a massive spike in demand, so there suddenly the traffic increases a lot, and the cost can get out of hand.
No, no, I'm not
Predict
saying, I'm not talking about because of demand. I'm saying something unexpected happened. This is expected. If there is more traffic, our applications, the Kubernetes will provision more resources
Yes.
for expansion.
Yes.
Something unexpected happened. What could go wrong? Give me any example. Excuse me. Give me any example. What could go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? Where we end up with so much, where we could potentially end up with a higher cost, but since
Yes.
we had
Okay.
AI ops, we were able to stop it in its tracks.
Okay.
So what could go
It,
wrong? And I'm giving
yes.
you the example. There is AWS
Yes.
Instance
Yes.
Scheduler
Yes.
and Azure Automation. What could go wrong with both of these things that could potentially, become an issue?
Okay.
Ooh.
If a hacker hacks into our cloud network, now what happens is, if he is using a botnet, the botnet expands quickly, and it, in a short amount of time, it can provision thousands of VMs even through a
Mhm.
botnet. We can do it can easily be achieved by a bad guy.
Yes.
Now, if we have artificial intelligence deployed for cost optimization purpose, what happens is, once these a lot of VMs are launched without any warning or uh, a expected spike, this unexpected spike cost increase can be dealt with artificial intelligence ML models, because they'll understand that this is not If it is trained based on a behavior model, it will understand this is not the behavior of the network. This is different from actually how the network operates in day-to-day functions. This is something unexpected. Based on that, it can, control the cost.
Okay. I mean, yes. I mean, uh, you could have. Yeah. I mean, that can also possibly happen. And what I was looking for is like AWS Instance Scheduler fails because of a misconfiguration of IAM, right? Or being compromised by someone where that person, which is disgruntled or a malicious person, state or non-state actor, can potentially penetrate the network and they can start provisioning machines, right, at a higher level. And once that happens, obviously that creates lots of problems. And to address those problems, what we do is just like, the AI is able to review the logs and is able to stop basically the provisioning of those machines in real time and say something happened, and and it informs the administrators, the cloud administrators to take some action. So how would you configure that AI model to do this thing? How would you do it?
In my case, I I believe we should build our own custom white box models, as I stated in my presentation, through AWS SageMaker.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So you
Sage
train the model. Okay. Good. Good. Continue.
SageMaker is used to train custom white box ML models based on the data lake that is this, is in the S3 bucket, from where we are feeding all the logs. Through that data, we train our custom models through AWS SageMaker.
Okay. In reality, we don't put everything in the S3 bucket. S3 bucket is just a place where you can park all the files. When it comes to log files, you have to put them in a syslog server because it can parse the logs, clean up the logs, and prepare the logs for the consumption of the LLM, right?
Okay.
That's how we have done it. It's a very cumbersome process because we were doing it through S3 bucket. When I told those guys to go and do it, they started doing it on S3 bucket. I said, "Is S3 bucket a log server?" They said, "No." Then I asked them, "Why are you doing it? Who told you to do that?" Because this is not a log server, because AI was consuming so much time reviewing the logs continuously, and there was like, you know, 300 gigs of logs every single day. So that was a lot of logs, right? So AI model was going crazy, saying like, I have to read so much data every single day just to understand what is happening, right? And that was not practical. So that's why in reality, you need syslog server to clean the log, parse the log, prepare the logs, and then you study the patterns. As you mentioned, that there can be high traffic events. When that happens, that's allowed. Those machines are completely legitimate. When there is no spike happening in the traffic, I can't see any web connections establishing, and you're still pushing up the machine, something is wrong. I need to go in
Yes,
and check it
yes,
and see and stop you guys.
yes, yes,
Good
yes.
job. Okay, so in the zero trust model, describe how would you enforce lateral east-west traffic isolation inside a Kubernetes cluster? You know, it's lateral,
Yes, I understood. I understood.
lateral way, right? This is horizontal, this is
Yes.
right. So how would you do that? Like, how would you implement
Now for east-west, to secure east-west traffic,
east to
as
west,
I
east west, right?
yes,
East
I
west. North and
also
south is going in and out. East
yes,
west
yes,
is within the network internally.
within the networks. Yes, I also mentioned this within my presentation, that for east-west traffic, to secure east-west traffic, we will have Kubernetes container network interfaces that will help us secure the east-west traffic within a cluster. For that, we have container network interfaces.
Okay. Would you use some kind of tools to do that?
Yes, Callisto or Cilium, both of them are good and can be used for this.
Argo CD as well, just to at the GitOps level, compliance level, just
Yes,
push
for
pod to
Argo
pod
CD is
communication.
used for the continuous deployment part in pull-based GitOps model.
Yes. Okay, the AI model for predictive scaling, mentioned integrates logs from S3, as you mentioned, right?
Yes.
What major ML modeling challenges arise when logs come from heterogeneous sources like SIEM, VM, Kubernetes, IEM systems? All of these logs that are
Yes.
coming, they're very different, something we are dealing with right now. We had a solution for that. That's why I'm asking you a question, right? How would you do that? What are the challenges? What challenges would you see?
Okay, in the case of
Let me ask you something. Okay, go ahead. Before, if we can understand the question, that's fine. Otherwise, I would have broken it down further.
in the case of heterogeneous data coming from different platforms into the S3 bucket, to make sure that the data the data type has to be consistent before we start training the models. If their data are of different types, we can't train the model properly. For that, we will have to sort the data out and do data annotation, data labeling in the proper manner, and make sure the data cleaning will be critical. We have to clean the data, and then we can possibly use it to train the models.
Okay, presentation is done. I mean, there are schema variances, there's time stat alignment, there's noise injection, label
Okay.
scarcity. There's so many things, right? And these are different kinds of logs. For the LLMs to consume, it's easier to consume JSON logs, right? The CSV, the plain text requires
Yes.
schema normalization. So
Yes.
there's a lot of challenges happening. Okay. Sorry, I'm not feeling well, but have to continue working. All right, so very well done. MashaAllah. Would you like to know your results?
And definitely, sir. Definitely.
Okay, so you scored 22.5 out of 25, 90% in your presentation, which is very good. I was really happy to know all of those things, right? Uh, you're one of those students who ask so many questions during your time, right? Which is good, mashallah. In your Q&A, you scored 23, right? Which is 23 out of 25, again, 92%. So overall, you scored 91%, mashallah, right? This this brings you in the top 5% of the, diploma holders, mashallah. This is what I'm going to recommend to you. This is my recommendation. How old are you?
I will be 25 in 3 months.
3 months. Okay. 25 in 3 months. Okay. So you did your O levels and A level prior to
Yes.
joining us, right?
Yes.
Why
Yes.
did you
Yes.
took a break? Why was there a break?
No, Faisal bhai, actually, I talked with you a year ago and I told you I was in NAD University
Oh,
and
okay,
then I
okay.
dropped out to join this program.
Okay. So this is what you have to do, okay?
Yes.
You have completed your artificial intelligence operations, high
Yes.
marks, right? MashaAllah. Recently, not recently, last year we partnered with Adfolio, one of the consultants. They have offices all over the world. Um, they can arrange an admission for you in a master's program based on your AI ops anywhere in the world, right? You can go to US, UK, Canada. If you want, we are already arranging that for 49 plus students right now. Okay. Something they can do. They don't charge any fee or anything like that because this is part of the Nafi Al Razak program, right? That's something that you can consider doing it. We will be able to sponsor you for your uh, financial sponsorship bank statements because you have already completed and secured 91%, right? Only few things remaining, which is Al Razak completion. You will be able to do it anyway. You will be given Al Razak labs. Al Razak has two parts, part one and part two, right? Part one is going to be all the labs covering your courses, and part two will be the labs based on your preferences, your requirements, your career objectives, and stuff like that, right? So
Okay.
that's one thing. The other thing is you should fully pursue QB becoming QB astronaut. Okay. We are in the process of getting our Al Razak platform certified with respect to ISO 17024, something that we anticipate, considering all these things going on, to be completed by next year, mid of June 2026, right? What this means is that the qualification that we will give it to you, the certification, the diplomas are already accredited by EduQual and Pearson. Off-call accreditation is in the pipeline, but that's another thing which is coming up, a very big thing. But securing the ISO 17024 means like this is the qualification standard. This is the certification that all the bodies like ISACA, IC Square, and some of these organizations have, right? They have a lot of value. So if I show you, the value of ISACA, right? So if I say, what is the value of ISO 17024, right? And right. So ISO 17024 is the international standard, which is validated. It's a global benchmark for personal certifications, right? So all the qualifications that we will be offering will become part of the qualifications like that we are offering will become part of the ISO 17024. So let me show it to you. This is how it's going to be, right? ISO 17024 benchmark, global benchmark for person certification. So Kubernetes is a person certification. I don't think it is, uh, you know, the Linux Foundation. If I ask, is the Linux Foundation ISO 17024 certified versus ISACA and IC Square, you will see, right? So I don't think Linux Foundation is, right? I suspect they are not, right? ISACA and IC Square is, right? They are. See, I told you. So, but there is still value for, uh, it does offer respected qualifications like the CKA and CKS and CKD. It has value. So don't underestimate the value of these qualifications. However, these qualifications are globally accepted and recognized, right? Because of ISO 17024. Okay. In the technical circles, QB astronaut is accepted and validated and recognized. So my recommendation to you is to become QB astronaut. Okay. If you don't want to go outside right now and just focus on getting the job and everything, go and complete the Al Razak program. Okay. Al Razak program will focus on all the core aspects that you need to know in order to better basically, be able to focus on all the key aspects where you want to go, right? For example, I can show you again, right? One of the things, right? So this is Al Razak program. You may have already received the email as well, right?
So
Uh,
Faisal bhai, actually, my NFA membership has expired. Will I still get access to this?
you have to renew the you have to renew the membership because you can only get Al Razak as long as your membership is live.
Okay.
If we will still give it to you, but you need to have an active membership to study. You do it only for 3 months. That should be enough, right? Because you have already completed all the diploma. That's why we are asking everyone to pay for EduQual exam on day one. This is a new program. Al Razak is new. We will keep on adding new value and new things, right? Right. So, but for that, you need to have an actual, active certificate, like subscription. The pathways you have already done. Have you completed the KYC process?
Yes, yes, I have done.
So based on that, we know your academic background, your professional goals, your geographical preferences, industry focus. So we will prepare a personalized, thing for you. If you don't want part two, which is based on all the key aspects, you can get part one access for free for 3 months. This is something we provided to everyone because this is something which is required to get the first copy of the resume. But the labs based on your profile in KYC and the job market is something, this is Al Razak part two, right?
Yes.
This is something different. There are four kinds of different labs: foundation labs, intermediate labs, advanced labs, and challenge labs. Foundation labs are pretty simple, basic setups, introductory tasks. Intermediate labs, they become difficult. Advanced labs, more difficult. Challenge labs, you will be sweating heavily. Yes. I mean, you'll be scratching your head and saying, like, I'm screwed. It takes into consideration a Nafi core integration framework, and AI ops addresses all these industries. You see, AI and ML for all
Yes.
industries.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Cybersecurity is in all industries. Cloud and big data is in all industries. So we will focus on all of these aspects. But if you come from an engineering background, or if you, then we can give you smart conductor and chip design. If you are coming from SCADA background, we can give you, energy systems, new renewable nuclear stuff like that, right? So depends on where you're coming from, what do you want to do, so on and so forth, right? If you have done specialization, we can give you a blockchain, all of those kinds of things, right? Different things. So begin your virtual internship, get all of those things. This comes with everything. The areas are set up, implement, manage, troubleshoot, secure, report, document. These are the kinds of labs you see in lab part two, right? And entrepreneurship spirit, developing business solutions for real world problems, right? So that's what you have to do. It gives, and you will be demonstrating all these labs on your GitOps. On the GitHub, build a portfolio. I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. And as I said, Al Razak program is undergoing ISO 17024 certification and is expected to be completed by mid of 2026, which will, after which it will supersede global certification programs. That's what we are
Okay.
focused on right now, right? You're already given these things. If you want, you can get all of that right now. You've already secured the financial sponsorship, right? I mean, you already have it because you secured the highest marks and plus meet all the other terms and conditions, stuff like that. So, inshallah, you'll there. So, this is my recommendation for you. Complete that, get into Al Razak. If you don't want to do part two, right, just go and do part one. Part one will be given for free for 3 months. Part two is separate. That's more detail, more, you take a deep dive. Every person's part two, Al Razak lab will be different because you might want to work into different areas. Other person might wants to work in different areas, right?
Yes.
And
Yes. Yes.
everyone, different countries, different standards, different industries, right? So that's what we build your Al Razak program on, right? Inshallah.
Faisal bhai,
So
my goal right now was to secure a job as soon as possible and then, go for the CISSP exam.
don't go for the CSSP exam.
Okay.
You'll be spending $700, right?
Yes, it is very, expensive.
Why do you want to do it? No, go and invest that money in becoming a QB astronaut. That's much better.
Okay.
My eyes, CSSP qualification for you has zero value. For the other person, yes. For in your case, zero value. If you want to work in Saudi Arabia, for example, or
Yes.
Middle East, like
Yes.
UAE or Oman, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, right? Any of these countries, you
Yes.
target, you already have everything. You did your O levels, A levels, AI ops, everything is done. Complete Al Razak program, become QB astronaut. You can land on a 25 to 30,000 dirham, or 25 to 30,000 real, or 20,000 dirham job, the first, per month.
Okay. Okay.
If you complete Al Razak, we can even assist you because there is a job portal coming in July, which is only accessible to employers, right? And they will log in and they will look for the candidate they're looking for.
Okay.
And the Middle Eastern companies have access to it, right? I'm able to even connect some of the companies in Canada and USA, and the Canadian companies are willing to sponsor you LMIA, Labor Market Impact Assessment, right? As they call it. That's a work permit. It becomes easy for you to get the work permit. Within 3 to 4 weeks, you can get the work permit, right? That's why I'm telling you, focus on all of those things. You are young, you have a lot of time, inshallah, on your hands. What you decide
Inshallah.
in the next 1 to 2 years will decide your future, until the time you're 50. Okay? Do you have any questions for me?
Yes, Faisal bhai, one question. Will I get a letter that can validate that now I have completed my EduQual program?
Yes, that will be provided to you because you have completed all the requirements.
Yes.
It will mention your
Yes.
diploma. will come in the next 6 to 8 weeks. That's the time. I mean, sometimes it's sent it
Okay.
early on, you know.
Okay. Okay.
You
Okay.
have to provide a testimonial and stuff like that. But yes, that would be done.
Okay.
Okay. Any other
Yes.
questions?
No vessel, bhai.
Really happy, mashallah, Aseef. You did a very well job. Good job, mashallah. Keep on working hard. Keep on doing
Inshallah.
the things, inshallah. You have a very bright future ahead of you. And may Allah give
Inshallah.
you more success. May Allah give you,
Inshallah.
you know, ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Oh Allah, give me the best in this dunya, all the
Yes.
hasanat of this dunya, and the life hereafter, akhirah, and protect me from hellfire. وقنا عذاب النار.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Very
Amen.
important, inshallah. Okay. Inshallah. I will see you next time when I'm live. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum